You're tuned in to the Brand Ambassador Select Podcast.
Welcome back to the Brand Ambassador Select Podcast, where we are building connections, showcasing the impressive, and inspiring movers and makers. I'm your host, Lenore, and after spending 5 years running a bakery and testing out plenty of gluten-free flour blends, Tara Rylie, our guest today, was ready to provide customers with the ultimate gluten-free experience in the comfort of your own kitchen. So that's when RylieCakes was born. So RylieCakes has exceptional flour blends and really unfussy recipes that are downright rich and delicious. So I can't wait to hear from Tara. So Tara Rylie, welcome to the Brand Ambassador Select Podcast.
Thank you. Good morning.
So I need to hear all about the beginnings and the stories, all about RylieCakes. And one, thank you, because I'm super excited to hear what you have to say, because my mom is celiac and my brother is celiac. So sometimes they got boring things in the house and I don't want to go over and eat. So I need to really give them some good ideas. So SOS.
Oh my gosh, I totally get that. And that is why I created RylieCakes. Been eating gluten-free for 13 years. And everything on the market 13 years ago, sorry, every company that was out there, and it had no flavor, right? It was just pretty bad. And I have been baking my whole life. I've always loved to bake. So after college, I decided to go to culinary school and kind of hone in on my baking skills, which was really difficult because I couldn't eat anything I made. It wasn't like a gluten-free culinary school. That didn't exist at the time. And I created a bakery here in the Seattle area, ran it for 5 years, and that is where all these baking mixes came to life. So we tested them, and we would test them on the customers, and then from their feedback, we would tweak them. We'd go in the kitchen and change little things here and there. And over those 5 years, we were able to create these 7 baking mixes that are now the RylieCakes line.
Yeah, I didn't know at first until obviously like my mom got me accustomed to these things, that flour, you really use regular flour blends if you were gluten-free. Didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, no, you can't use anything that's on the market. And the hard thing is you would use all-purpose flour to make shortbread, to make biscuits, to make cake, all-purpose flour with all almond flour or all rice flour, because you're going to get a really dense product, a dry product, a crumbly product, or it's not going to have any flavor. So gluten-free baking is much more of a science, I think, than regular baking, because you do need to have that combination of all those different flours in order to get the right taste and the right texture.
So what are some of the baking mixes that you have at RylieCakes?
Our most popular mix is our cake mix. And that is obviously great for cakes, but it's perfect for muffins and brownies. It's going to be your most basic mix, your most commonly used mix. We also have a roux mix, which, believe it or not, is our second most popular mix. And traditionally, a roux is when you mix flour and butter and you create a thickener. And when you add milk to it, you get a sauce for like a mac and cheese or gravy, a thickener for soup, which we do use the roux mix for. But it's a really beautiful mix because when combined with the cake mix, it gives a crispiness to like the edges of your cookies. It adds a really nice flavor profile when you're making, I'm like off the top of my head, when you're making different sorts of brownies where you want those like really nice dense edges, but you want the chewy centers. So the combination of the two mixes, again, it gets a little more complicated gluten-free, but that's why RylieCakes is here for you, right? We make all the mixes. So all you got to do is combine them and then you get the perfect baked good at home.
So the traditional boxes tell you water, vegetable oil, or milk, or eggs, or butter. What other things do we incorporate into your cake mixes?
Great question. Our cake mixes, it's better if you just think of them like you're baking with all-purpose flour and you're going to do good old-fashioned baking. So you're going to still be creaming your butter and your sugar together. You're going to be adding eggs and vanilla, chocolate chips, maybe cocoa powder, buttermilk, some milk. You're going to do all the usual stuff you would have done, say, if you were like baking at home with your grandma, right? It's not just a box mix where you add an egg. But the beauty of this, even though it takes a little more effort, which I think is totally worth it, Obviously, I love being in the kitchen, but your end product is so delicious that your friends and family aren't even going to know it's gluten-free. That's how good it's going to be.
Yeah, that's the best part, is when somebody gives you something and you don't tell them. And obviously they're not going to die, but it's like, oh, I did not know that. Like when people try to fool me with food, which happens regularly.
Yeah, we just got some new neighbors, so I baked them some goodies and brought them over to say welcome to the neighborhood. And I didn't say a word, and I got this long text message just about how good the baked goods were and what an incredible baker I must be. And they have no idea of my history, obviously. They're new neighbors. And I was just like, fun fact, they're gluten-free. So it's pretty exciting when people have no idea.
What was one of your first recipes that you did make with this flour mix that was gluten-free, and after all these years you're like, I can finally eat this again?
That's the first recipe I actually made with the baking mixes was a quinoa banana bread, and it is in the cookbook. And it wasn't one of those foods that I was craving, right? It wasn't like something that was like, man, I can finally eat this again. But it was the first recipe I ever created with these baking mixes that I was like, oh my God, onto something. Like people are going to want to eat these. But I'd say the first recipe I made that I've been craving for a long time, also in the cookbook, is a recipe for pretzels. Those big soft pretzels, kind of like Auntie Anne's. And oh my gosh, the minute I created those, I was like, okay, life is good. I can be gluten-free forever. Just make me a pretzel, give me a glass of wine, and I'm a happy camper.
See, it's that bread thing. As much as the gluten, whatever, you're right. You want that rich, soft bread dough that unfortunately, but not unfortunately now because you got it, but unfortunately you don't usually see. But you are definitely answering the prayers.
Thank you. Yeah, and I will say it's like one of the trickier recipes in the book. And I think that's one of the harder things about going gluten-free is you don't really have that convenience anymore, right? You're not just like going to the mall and picking up a big giant pretzel or even going through a fast food joint. But I like to look at the positive side, that it gives us the ability to slow down and get in the kitchen and learn to cook and learn to bake and do all these things that really are nourishing for our souls anyways, and be able to eat good food afterwards.
So Tara, I literally have RylieCakes up in front of me on my computer, and I'm scrolling through all your products right now. Like, I can make more meat dishes with your flour mixes, some chicken and fish and veggies and all things carbs. There's way more than just baking stuff on your site that you have to offer.
Yeah. Yep. In our biscuit mix, I've got it back here. That's our purple bad boy. I use the biscuit mix for breading, dredging, to make chicken tenders, fried cauliflower, tempura if we're doing like an at-home sushi night. The biscuit mix is great for an amazing French bread as well, that you just want to like eat the center out, as soon as it's done baking. And I also use the mixes when making other meat dishes, if you're going to do a little flour and salt and pepper to get it a little crispy before baking, all different sorts of sauces and dressings. So you are right. I call them baking mixes, but I really use our website to try to show people you can get creative with them and make so much more than just a cake or a pie.
Yeah, sauces, sips, salads, soups. I clicked on the all things carb because your girl loves some bread. So any way that I could reduce a little bit of the intake, I'm all for, especially those pretzels you described. Sign me up.
Yeah, I love, I don't know if this recipe is on the website or if it's in the cookbook, but it's an awesome recipe for bacon mac and cheese, and that uses our roux mix. So I am trying to hit all the spaces, because I know as celiacs, we miss so much more than just a cookie or just a cake. And I think when you do go out into the world, that's probably what you see more than anything, is a muffin or a cookie. So I really wanted to have a safe place where people could find these recipes and then have an easy outlet to order the blends and get cooking.
So how is actually being a whole one woman show? Because you do, this is all you, right? Like, you don't have any little minions? This is a Tara only exclusive.
I wish I had a lot of minions. This is a Tara Rylie exclusive. I do it all. It's really made doable by other small businesses. Our packaging is created about 15 minutes from our office by another family-owned business. And they send the packaging to my manufacturer, which is also in Washington State. They fill my bags for me and then send them back to me. So in that sense, I do kind of have like the little minions out there. But it's been a really awesome experience to work with other small businesses, family-owned businesses, and do everything right here in Washington State, have everything be local, made in the USA. I've been really grateful for that experience because I actually get to go to the facilities. And one day I worked on the line and I helped make the baking mixes and fill them, which was a totally cool experience because most of us, I don't really realize where our food comes from or how it gets made. So it's been really awesome to have everything right here, so close, and to have that help. And that, having those two companies alone allows me to do everything else on my end, to pick, pack, ship it out to you, and marketing and podcasts and everything that goes along with being an entrepreneur.
You're right. I definitely don't know where my food goes from, too. I'm lucky I can get it from the refrigerator to like the table. So I'm hoping that your recipes will help me become a better chef because I've tried to make roux specifically, and I need help. And you may be the answer to my prayers. I guess
we'll just start baking on or cooking like over the phone.
Now I have zero excuses to not have gluten-free dishes at my house now. So thank you, but not thank you at the same time.
Yeah, I'm like, start with something easy, right? Do like a quiche or something. Everybody will love it. It'll be nice and easy. Or like a Thanksgiving pie. I mean, when I go anywhere, if somebody has one thing that's gluten-free, I'm in heaven. I'm so happy, so grateful because I understand how hard it is. And I've been doing it for 13 years. I would never, dream of it or expect anyone else to ever do that. So just having like that one item in the house makes all the difference.
So the website is RylieCakes.com. And Tara, we can order everything and anything on that site, correct?
Yeah, so you can order anything and everything on the website. We are also on Amazon as well. So if you want to get our cookbook, like in the next 48 hours, the cookbook is available on Prime. And then if you're on the West Coast, we are in grocery outlet stores. I don't think they're on the East Coast.
Well, let's make your way over here.
I'm working on it. I think they're in Pennsylvania of all places. So if you're in Pennsylvania, grocery outlet's the place to go. But online is where we do most of our business and just go straight to the customer. I love working with all my customers. So it still makes it really fun for me as well.
As a chef and as a baker, do you have any tips and advice for... It's like you knew where I was going. Do you have any tips or advice for me, really? I don't know why I'm going to pretend like it's not for me, but do you have any tips or advice for me that I could, do anything with? Because I'm not going to pretend that the listeners need it. They may need it too. So if you're listening and you need it as well, I'm just going to tell you that I need it too.
I would say have fun in the kitchen. And this is something I always did when we had the brick and mortar bakery as well, is we would just blast the tunes, even if it was like 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning, like have a dance party, loosen up. I mean, it's not life or death, right? You're baking, you're cooking, like it should be fun. It should be enjoyable. And if you're cooking, get creative, right? You don't need to follow a recipe exactly. And because I get questions all the time, like, oh, I don't like scallions. Could I put in parsley? Of course. Like, you don't need to ask. You don't need permission. Just have fun in the kitchen. And if you are baking, I beg of you to just please follow the recipe, like from beginning to end. Don't get creative at all. That's where the most mistakes come from. But I think the biggest thing is just relax. I think a lot of people, especially my friends, didn't grow up cooking, didn't grow up baking. And so being in the kitchen is a new place for them. And just remember, it's supposed to be fun and enjoy yourself. Because the worst that could happen is something doesn't turn out and then you do it again.
Honestly, for me, I'm not doing it again. I usually dump it out and say, let's do takeout, please.
No, okay, so then my tip to you would be do it again. Keep trying. Don't leave the kitchen.
No, the truth is that's what I turn to my fiance and I'd be like, I told you not to let me do this.
This is your fault.
It's all your fault.
Follow the recipe. There you go.
So RylieCakes.com. You can follow them on Instagram at RylieCakesGF, and you can also shoot them an email, info@RylieCakes.com. Tara, Rylie, thank you so much for joining us and really informing me and anybody else the beauty of being in the kitchen and cooking gluten-free.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it, and I look forward to hearing from all y'all listeners.
Now that's a wrap on another episode of the Brand Ambassador Select Podcast. I'm your host, Lenore. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss one. More at brandambassadorselect.com, and we will see you next time.